GETACHEW, REDA, thank you for joining me on Head to Head tonight.
My pleasure.
You are currently serving as a government minister and an advisor to Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Abiy, as you know, is a controversial, some would say divisive political figure in your country. His critics say he's a tyrant, he's a grifter, he's dismembering Ethiopia. What's your response to people who make those criticisms of your boss?
Some, if not most of the things I have said all along the last couple of years, the last few years. So after having signed the Pretoria Agreement and submitting ourselves to the Constitution, because we have to put an end to the war, and after having served as interim president of Tigray for 2 years, we have come to a point where we have to work closely with the Prime Minister, whatever our political differences, whatever our characterizations.
You recognise that you're the person who called him a tyrant, a grifter, dismembering Ethiopia?
And more, yeah.
And more. You did go more.
Yeah.
You actually accused him of committing the crime of crimes, genocide, against your people, against the Tigrayans during the recent civil war. According to you, Abiy's forces even tried to assassinate you via drone strike, and they abducted and detained your sister. How does your sister feel about you working with the people who abducted her? Must make for an awkward family dinner.
My sister would feel the pain of having to go through the kinds of problems she had to face. But I think it would be fair to say that my sister is going to feel relieved that the kinds of sufferings she had to go through, people would not have to go through anymore.
You fell out with your old party, the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, the TPLF. They ousted you. And then you went and joined Abiy Ahmed. You didn't have to join the other side. You could have just said, you know what, I'm done with all of you.
Yeah, one of the things I knew I had to do was to make sure that my erstwhile friends, my comrades, who for one reason or another, of course that would include myself too, led to the kinds of suffering the people of Tigray had to suffer because of their failure in leadership, should not be allowed to continue to enjoy the kind of totalitarian control over the people of Tigray. So as long as there was a possibility, indeed a likelihood of working closely with the federal government, not to spite the people of Tigray, but to protect the interests of the people of Tigray.
But you're working with the federal government, hold on GETACHEW, you're working with the federal government that you spent years calling war criminals. You said Abiy Ahmed, and I'm quoting you, perfected genocide into an art form. Do you stand by those genocide accusations, or have you walked them back now that you work with?
Whatever the superlatives there, I know all kinds of crimes were committed in Tigray.
Did Abiy Ahmed carry out a genocide?
I will tell you this, as a lawyer, yeah. I cannot say who did this and that, but the crime was committed in Tigray.
You're a lawyer?
Yeah.
Were you not a lawyer in 2021 when you said Abiy Ahmed has carried out a genocidal campaign?
Yeah, I was a lawyer.
Were you not a lawyer when you said Abiy committed genocide on the people of Tigray?
I was a lawyer, and I was in the heat of a conflict that was claiming the lives of hundreds of thousands of people.
So was it a genocide or not?
I believe genocide has been committed in Tigray.
By Abiy Ahmed?
Well, I have to be responsible for my words now.
So you weren't responsible
and
before?
I am ready to stand by my position that genocide has been committed.
I'm confused. Just to clarify for the audience watching, you still believe it was a genocide,
yes.
But you're not willing to say he did the genocide?
Yes.
It was a genocide that just happened by itself?
No, there were so many actors involved.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is...
Was he one of them?
Well, the war on Tigray was led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed himself.
So he led the genocide?
I mean, we don't have to be that specific.
We do.
He led the war.
That's why we invited you here, to find out your views.
He led the war.
He led the war.
So I will give him the opportunity to
genocide.
defend himself in public, in court.
Okay.
What I'm saying is all kinds of crimes.
You mentioned...
Crimes, ethnic cleansing, genocide were committed.
So you're right, there were well-documented war crimes committed by the federal government, by Eritrean troops, yes. By Amhara militias. But human rights organizations in the United Nations also documented massacres of hundreds of people, including civilians, by Tigrayan forces, by your side. At the time, you labeled those claims, quote, a figment of someone's imagination. You called it a staged drama. Can you now admit that you were lying at the time to cover up war crimes
I wasn't lying.
By your forces?
I was making a statement defending our decisions that there was no systematic attack against civilians by the Tigrayan forces, but to the extent that there were incidents we were ready to hold ourselves accountable to any international tribunal. So when I say...
You said at the time, these are just a figment of someone's imagination. There was no such thing as our forces going in every house and targeting civilians. They fought and our forces fought back. That sounds like a denial of war crimes.
But, you know, in the benefit of hindsight, I can see cases here and there where civilians were targeted.
Here and there?
Yes.
One man said he counted 55 corpses as he escaped from his town in northern Ethiopia. He stepped over bodies scattered in the streets. Another asserted he was rounded up with 20 men who were shot in front of him. Yet others claimed Tigrayan forces went door to door, killing men and teenage boys. That happened on your watch.
Well, to say that it happened under my watch, under circumstances, would be a bit of a stretch. But when I say that no such decision was made against civilians, I still stand by it, because there was no decision to target civilians. But as long as there were off-grid officers here and there who have targeted civilians, I'd be more than glad to assume my fair share of responsibility.
To be fair, you recently exposed an internal TPLF investigation that accuses 231 of your former leaders and affiliates of crimes, including human trafficking, abductions, gold and weapons smuggling. But you waited to reveal it.
Honestly...
How do we know you weren't involved in these crimes?
Honestly, I wasn't involved in the crimes because...
Well, you exposed them.
Because I wasn't. But I knew...
That's not really a good defense. I wasn't involved in the crimes because I wasn't.
After having spent months as president of the interim administration, it came to my knowledge that these kinds of activities were quite...
But you didn't reveal it. You waited until this year.
Because I didn't reveal it because we believed in the TPLF that maintaining a modicum of unity was far more important than addressing our internal problems. And that...
I mean, human trafficking is not an internal problem. It's a major crime.
When I first decided to bring those not just accusations, but also evidence to light, well, my responsibility was to make sure the people who were in the business of adjudicating these cases were informed. And it's not like I can go door to door and prosecute myself.
But you exposed 231 people.
But I did the exposing way ahead of my being ousted as interim president.
But you admitted earlier this year that you lied up until now. I tolerated this.
No, I tolerated.
You lied. You said you lied.
No, I didn't lie. I tolerated.
You said earlier this year, it is enough that I lied up to now, and I tolerated up to now. Those are your words.
Well,
are you lying about having lied?
Whoever translated those things to you must have overstated their case.
What would you say to someone in this audience who says, you exposed 231 people in your party for committing crimes. Conveniently, none of the 231 were you.
Unfortunately for whoever was making those claims, I wasn't one of them. It's as simple as that.
Okay. The Pretoria Agreement, the peace deal that you negotiated, signed in 2022, that pledged justice for millions of people who suffered during the war in Tigray. It's been 3 years, and none of the key promises have been fulfilled. None of the major players have been held accountable for war crimes. In fact, many of them are still in positions of power. Last month, you met with Amhara official Demeke Zudu, who Human Rights Watch has said continued the ethnic cleansing in Western Tigray even after the ceasefire, including, quote, arbitrary detention, torture, forced deportations. How can Tigrayans possibly believe that you are working in their best interest when you're meeting one of the men who's responsible for them having lost their land?
Is that unheard of elsewhere? If you are interested in resolving this crisis, you have to deal with people who are in charge now. I believe the federal government needs to dismantle any Amhara administration in occupied areas in Western Tigray and other parts of Tigray that are still occupied by the Amhara. And if I have to make sure that the people have their opportunity to come back home, you have to work with the federal government and work with people.
This is the problem, Getachew. You seem to change your tune. You have to change your tune.
No, I have to swallow my pride.
Not just swallow your pride, you're changing your very view of the world. This is what you said a year ago.
No, I'm not
this is what you said,
anyone.
This is what you said a year ago. It would be very foolhardy for us to expect internally displaced persons to enter when the very people who caused their displacement in the first place are still roaming the very streets we saw in the carnage. You're sitting down with those people.
This is one of the arguments we have with the federal government when I was head of the interim administration, is for that Amhara administration to be dismantled and for security to be taken care of by the federal government, along with traditional militia and police institutions that had been there before the war. And I haven't changed my position.
Okay.
Demeke Zudu should not be in the business of administering that area, but if I have to create the ground for the return of IDPs with the federal government and have to continue to work with people like him.
Many Tigrayans, you know this, see you as a traitor. Thousands of people in Tigray went to the battlefield and they died. They were killed in war based on your call to arms. You urged young Tigrayans to, quote, rise and deploy to battle in tens of thousands. What do you say to the people of Tigray today who were victims of the war and who now think you betrayed them by joining the architect of their suffering, Abiy Ahmed?
There are two things here. That Tigrayans had to come out en masse to defend themselves was the right thing to do. That I had to call on them to rise up to defend themselves was the right thing to do. But that as member of the leadership, we have failed them miserably. That I will carry to my grave is I am part of the blame. And the reason why I am trying to do what I am doing right now is to make sure that not only I atone for the kinds of mistakes we have done, but also I have to do everything in my power to make sure that that sort of miscalculation will never happen again. And the thousands of youngsters who paid their lives, that could have been avoided if we were insightful enough as the leaders. Okay. Doesn't happen again.
All right, let's go to our panel of experts here. I'm joined by Sadale Lama, editor of the Addis Standard newspaper. Were you surprised, Sadale, to see GETACHEW join Abiy Ahmed's administration? What does that mean for the victims of the war? He says he feels like he's atoning for things.
I think it's one of the greatest tragedies, GETACHEW. This is not just a moral collapse. This risks erasing morality altogether. You agree that a genocide took place. And it's not just a figment of imagination. You mentioned about, I would call it pragmatism or working from within to solve this problem. And I think your supporters also say the same thing. What have you done so far? Have the people of Tigray been compensated, redress, justice? Have the federal government tried to incorporate, after you even came to it, incorporate Tigray into the federation? The answer is no.
Okay.
Is there any justice to the victims? The answer is no.
Bisrat Lamessa is an independent researcher, runs the think tank Nexus Forum for Research and Dialogue. Do you agree with Sadale's point that he may have joined the government, he may be trying to do good, but where are the results? What did you make when you heard the big news that he had come and joined Abiy Ahmed?
I don't agree with Sadale, unfortunately. Well, one thing, it hasn't been designated as a genocide. This is a very sensitive concept that we shouldn't casually throw around. But when it comes to GETACHEW, I believe this is a very pragmatic move that has positive dividends at multiple levels. This is not a simple alliance between two individuals. People are rejecting TPLF's 50-year autocratic monopoly over the people's political, civil, and economic lives. They want a new political dispensation which is democratic, inclusive, open, and diverse. And I believe such a move is an ideal opportunity to create an alternative space that will enable Tigray to renew itself from within.
So Bisrat makes the case for why you should be in there. Deal with Sadale's point that what have you actually achieved being in government? What justice have you got?
I'll have to first respond to what Sadale. I mean, you know, I'm not here to pontificate about moral. I'm one of those leaders who should be blamed for anything and everything that has gone wrong. But I also know that I'm one of the leaders who realized that going ahead with the kind of destructive approach we've been following is not going to be in the best interest of the people of Tigray.
What have you achieved by making this big step?
Oh, you mean since joining? I had long since joined Abiy Ahmed. I was the interim president appointed by Abiy Ahmed. And why is it that all of a sudden now I was ousted from Tigray, as it were, and then I come to Addis and I have to deal with Tigray issues. I still have to protect the best interest of the people of Tigray in any way I can. And then I have the opportunity to work with the Prime Minister, not as a policymaker, but as an advisor who would give his 5 cents.
Let's bring in Shetil Tronville, is a professor of peace and conflict studies at Oslo New University College. He specializes in Ethiopian and Eritrean affairs. GETACHEW says he wants accountability and justice for Tigray and the victims of the civil war. Is the federal government that he's part of, that he's a minister in, is it working towards that aim? Is it doing enough?
Well, we don't have any evidence for that as of now. They have put in place a so-called transitional justice mechanism to address the mass atrocities taking place in Tigray during the war. But that framework of so-called transitional justice is more aimed at not disclosing and not placing accountability on individuals, but diverting attention to other aspects of Ethiopia's long troubled history of human rights abuse. So as of today, we have no evidence whatsoever that the government is providing accountability for the mass atrocities.
No evidence whatsoever. That's pretty damning.
I agree with Shetel. Nothing of the sort has happened. Well, the Defense Ministry has taken measures against some off-grade low-level officials. And as long as I am able to convince or try to impress on the powers that be in Addis Ababa that none of the adventures 5 years ago are going to pay dividends, and then I will use that opportunity.
In 2019, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed won the Nobel Peace Prize for ending decades of hostilities with neighboring Eritrea. Abiy then partnered with Eritrea to fight against Tigray in the civil war. Today, however, there are rumblings of a possible new conflict between these two countries. There are reports of Ethiopian tanks and artilleries moving towards the border. Both governments are accusing each other of trying to provoke a conflict. Is Ethiopia on the precipice of another war with Eritrea?
I wouldn't put it that way. I mean, the whole rhetoric about Ethiopia's wanting to have access to the Red Sea is often conflated with the idea of ownership of a real estate, coal, asset, or whatever. As far as I'm concerned, there is no credible argument whatsoever to try and go against the sovereignty of Eritrea.
Are you saying that the claims of the Ethiopian government, led by Abiy, saying we want access to that Red Sea port that's in Eritrea, you're saying that won't lead to war?
No. What I'm saying is I don't expect that to lead to war, at least not in the foreseeable future, as far as I'm concerned.
Prime Minister Abiy, on the one hand, has said he wants peace. He said he wants to avoid conflict. On the other, he's vowed to, quote, correct this historic error of the seaport and said, quote, I am 1,000,000% sure Ethiopia will not remain landlocked. The Ethiopian military said recently that it will not hesitate to make any sacrifice to secure access to the sea. How are those not threats?
So I have reason to believe that President Isaias and Prime Minister Abiy will find it in their hearts to find a way to resolve, to defuse the crisis. Believe me. That's what I believe in.
When you say believe me, this show is not about belief. It's about facts. It's about evidence.
I will tell
Do you have any evidence?
I'll tell you about the facts.
Do you have any evidence that you're ruling, you're saying there's no conflict? Everyone who's worried about conflict right now.
I'll give you the facts. Okay. You know, I recently traveled to Afar region, all the way to Bure.
Yeah.
And I saw concrete asphalt being built by the Ethiopian government. Yeah. Obviously, the Eritrean government also is building their side of the asphalt. So it must have been a recent fallout between the two sides. So if they have made that investment sincerely, and then I cannot rule out the two parties coming together.
People worry about the rhetoric. Many would say this is not about a port. This is about expansionism by the Ethiopian government. Some have said that Abiy is, quote, obsessed with Ethiopia's imperial past, that he wants to march into Eritrea's capital and declare the Red Sea as his border. He wants to be celebrated as the leader who restored Ethiopia's greatness. What do you say to people who say that?
Well, I said as much in the past myself. Now the question is...
Those are all your quotes. You said he was obsessed with Ethiopia's imperial past. You said he wants to restore Ethiopia's greatness. Is that not what you believe anymore?
Well, no. I mean, I don't have any problem with Abiy wanting to restore Ethiopia's greatness, whatever that greatness is. My issue is that sort of claim is not likely to lead to the kind of conflict people fear is going to happen anytime soon.
At the time, when you said it in 2021, you said it would lead to conflict.
I said it in no, I didn't even say it will lead to conflict. I said he will take over Asmara.
I understand that's what you're saying. My question is, does that mean you no longer think he's an imperialist warmonger?
No. I think at this point in time he cares more about his image, that he's trying to make differences in domestic politics and all that. So I don't think he will risk the kind of expansionist approach that many people impute to him. But
many people being you.
In fact, I went beyond that he would take over Asmara.
Okay.
He hasn't taken over Asmara.
So are you saying you were wrong about that?
No, he hasn't taken over Asmara.
If war does break out with Eritrea, should Abiy give his Nobel Peace Prize back?
Well, he could.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Let's go back to our panel. Sadale Lema, what do you make of the tensions between Eritrea and Ethiopia? Getachew says, believe me, he's got some insider information. They're not going to go to war. Do you buy that? Are you worried?
I am worried, and I think a lot of people are worried. I think the fundamental problem of the tension today is the alliances that President Isaias Afwerki and Abiy Ahmed created a war pact. And when the Pretoria Agreement was signed, it collapsed. Now the two are looking at each other. But the problem is that I think the Prime Minister made it for the first time a few weeks ago when he said that what they want is a navy base. And it's not just the port access. And this ups the ante.
I want to bring in Sheetal Tronville. You study conflicts. You know both these countries very well. Do you think war is inevitable? Do you think it's avoidable? Do you buy the, should we call it complacency or positivity from Getachew here?
No, I think the war is coming, and it's coming pretty soon. Ethiopia is now posturing and ticking off every box of claiming a right to self-defense, accusing Eritrea of destabilizing Ethiopia, accusing Eritrea of funding and arming militias, the Fano Amhara militias, accusing Eritrea to collude with the Tigrayan government or the TPLF in Tigray. The Minister of Foreign Affairs in Ethiopia submitted a letter to the Secretary General of UN, ticking off all of these issues, saying that we will be patient, we want peace, but we are not patient for too long.
Sheetal says war is coming, and he's laying out that the Ethiopian government seems to be making the case for it.
While I agree with his analysis, what I'm saying is war is not necessarily inevitable. The reason why I don't believe war is inevitable is because the region has more than ample experience of turning things around and making the best of bad out of erstwhile enemies.
Excuse me, Mr. Getachew, the region has also ample experience with war after war after war after war, relapsing to war more than creating sustainable peace.
Let me bring in Bisrat Lamesa. Let me ask you, Bisrat, when Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed says, we will correct the historic error, the mistake made 30 years ago will be corrected tomorrow, it is an existential issue. That sounds like a guy getting ready to do war.
The government and also the Ethiopian people at large resent a flawed political process through which Ethiopia lost its coastal territories. So the Ethiopian government wants to sit down and discuss that with the Eritrean regime. Now, this is the problem. Eritrea's aggression is not necessarily linked to Ethiopia's quest for access to the sea. The Eritrean government hasn't managed to capitalize on Eritrea's independence and create a functional state that is reliable, predictable, and has institutions. In 2018, the Ethiopian government tried to formalize the expression of interest in friendship into institutionalized agreements.
Well, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia in 2018 recognized the borders.
It was just the borders per the Algiers agreement, but it wasn't necessarily about making corrections to the historical strategic blunder.
We are going to take a short break. In part 2, we will be back with Getachew REDA, with our panel of experts, talking about the Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, his record, his legacy, his human rights issues, and Getachew's relationship with him. Don't go away. Welcome back to Head to Head on Al Jazeera. My guest tonight is a government minister and an advisor to Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, Getachew REDA. Getachew, in part 1, we talked about the prospects for war. We talked about your own record in terms of moving over from the TPLF to the current government. Let's talk about the current government. Let's talk about Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, a man who at first was heralded as a reformer. He got a peace prize. He was seen as a fresh leader after decades of oppressive TPLF-dominated rule, your former party. Today, though, under his rule, we're witnessing an erosion of human rights, government clashes with militia groups in Amhara, Oromia, the ongoing killing of civilians, the jailing of journalists and opposition figures. Ethiopia's economy is struggling, poverty is on the rise. Now, as you said in part 1, you support the Prime Minister in terms of trying to end conflict, especially abroad. But surely on the domestic front, you could agree that it's not going so well for Abiy Ahmed on the domestic front.
Bulldozing your way out of every crisis is not going to work. So to the extent that I have a role to play, it's as much about addressing the Tigray crisis as trying to give my piece of advice to the Prime Minister. That
what about all the opposition politicians and journalists who are being locked up? You used to be against that back in the day.
Well, I'm still against any such move against opposition leaders.
Well, you were an advisor to the Prime Minister. Have you asked him to release some of these journalists and politicians?
Well, you give me a list and I definitely will do that, believe me.
I'll read to you from the Committee to Protect Journalists from August.
Okay.
Ethiopian journalists were abducted by masked men. 2 others were detained. We are alarmed by the abduction of Ethiopian newspaper editor Jonas Amari, the arbitrary detention of journalist Qadr Mohammed Ismail, the incommunicado detention of radio host Abdul Samed Mohammed. I can keep going. Should they be released?
They should be released, yeah.
Well, I mean, telling me that's great, but I'm not the Prime Minister of Ethiopia.
Well, I don't exactly know what the allegations against them are.
Why don't you find out?
I once was the information minister. I had been dealing with such kinds of issues. And I don't believe that detaining journalists for their professional work is acceptable.
What about the federal MP Christian Tadale, who was taken last year, detained? He's now very ill in prison. His family are very worried about him. He's a member of parliament.
He should have his day in court. Anyone who is accused of any crime should have their day in court, and they should be treated decently.
You have all these tensions in Ethiopia, and some people would say undermines Prime Minister Abiy's very grand vision for unity, which is outlined in a series of books called Medema, which means coming together. Yeah. And Medema in part advocates for ending Ethiopia's division into ethnic states and pushing for a united country. It's very idealistic, very grand. A lot of people have criticized that pan-Ethiopian ideology. Some people call it an assimilation agenda that's been the source of the problems for Ethiopia. Other people call it bullshit. Some people say Abiy has no idea what Medema is. What do you say to those critics?
Well, but the only Medema book I've read is the most recent one. So I gave my, my assessment of what the book stands for.
You called it a noble document.
Did I call it a noble document?
Yeah.
I said it has grand ideas, and the way to put them on the ground, to implement them, would require a serious policy debate. I wasn't endorsing any policy. I was simply saying that he has a vision.
Just to be clear, the people who said it was bullshit and an assimilation agenda that's the source of the problems, and who said Abiy doesn't have any clue about Medema, was, drumroll, you.
Well, Medema, I mean, I'm talking about the only book I have read, and I commented on it.
So why did you say in 2020 Abiy came up with Medema? He doesn't have any clue about Medema.
No, he had clue about Medema, but I didn't subscribe to what he said in the Medema back then. And
but you do now?
I'm not even sure.
Do you still think it's bullshit?
I probably have matured enough the last 5 years to avoid the kinds of sweeping characterizations that people make, and I once made.
You're a reformed man.
I wouldn't say reformed, but I have grown up.
You've grown. Just to be clear, when I interviewed you in 2016 for Al Jazeera, you were a government minister, as you mentioned, spokesperson for the TPLF.
For the government, for the federal government.
But you were also in the TPLF.
Yes.
Now you're with the Abiy government, you're anti the TPLF. Next year, who knows where you'll be? People will say, how can we take you seriously?
Well, you should
come out, you hop.
Because I will tell you this. Once what I contribute, whatever I can contribute to the betterment of the lives of the people of Tigray, if I can do whatever I can to make sure this misguided leadership, this misguided leadership doesn't end up creating the same miscalculation that landed the people of Tigray in this situation.
Your goal.
And then I'll be gone.
But gone where? To another party?
No, probably to academia, to writing books and all that. Believe me, I'm not interested in the corridors of power anymore. Even now,
you're not interested in political power, even though you've been in politics for 20-odd years.
Even now, I don't clear my words with the Prime Minister. I don't clear my words with anyone, and I do what I do, and I say it because I think it's in the best interest of the people. On that note,
critics of Abiy say he has a messiah complex. He's once said that he was divinely ordained to rule, that his mother had a vision that he would be the seventh king
said that, right?
to unite Ethiopia. An advisor of his said Abiy believes he's God anointed. Has he said that to you? Does he tell you that he's the king?
No, he said it in public. He said it in Parliament, right?
Did he say it to you?
No, he didn't say it to me. As a matter of fact, he was a very close friend even before he got elected. So, but
who was
what he said, Abiy was my close friend.
You hated him. You said he was a genocidal warmonger, imperialist.
Yeah, but
weird friends you have.
That doesn't change the fact that we're friends.
The fact that he's a genocidal warmonger didn't change the fact that you were friends.
No. I'm stating the fact.
Before the genocide, you mean you were friends?
Yes.
And after the genocide, you're friends. Just during the genocide, you weren't friends.
We were fighting each other. We were at each other's
Yes,
throats.
and thousands of people.
No. I mean, let's not belittle the whole idea of this genocide, whatever. What
I'm
saying
not the
is,
one belittling you. You're the one who said you used to be friends with the guy you.
No. He didn't tell me personally that he was a messiah or anything.
Do you believe he's a messiah?
He said his mother told him he would once be a king.
Do you believe Abiy was chosen by God to rule Ethiopia?
I don't.
You don't?
I don't.
Have you told him that?
I haven't. I don't have to tell him.
I mean, you kind of do. He thinks he is, and you're his advisor. Advisors normally give advice.
I don't believe God has specific choices or whatever to lead. As long as you think you can lead the country and you prove your mettle, you can be leader.
Has he proved his mettle?
He has yet to prove his mettle.
Yet to. He's been in office for several years. He's still yet to prove his mettle.
This is my position. Okay. I'm not in the business of settling accounts on his behalf. I'm not in the business of.
And if he watches this interview and he sees his advisor saying he's yet to prove his mettle and he may be guilty of genocide, do you think he'll fire you or keep you on?
I honestly am not. I don't really care what happens as a result of that. But I have reason to believe that saying those things in public does not necessarily lead to the kinds of